Hi, everybody. We've made it. We have all arrived at Sexual Kundalini Yoga. How singles and couples can master this long lost art. We are super excited to be with you, and I want you to know our intention for tonight, okay? So I'm going to tell you what our intention is that all of you, whether you're our current students or past students, or you are just meeting us for the first time tonight, like you just saw this on Eventbrite and you're like, I think I'll go to this, that you get an overall understanding of spiritual sexual practice basics. And a lot of these are similar throughout the different traditions. We'll be emphasizing the Kundalini aspect tonight and also our unique contributions to that. So that's our intention tonight. I'm Alicia Davon.
I'm Erwan Davon.
And those of you who are new, you are at a session of Mastery of Relationship. It's our weekly group coaching class. Hey guys, those of you in the class, we're going to start in a moment with a 20-ish minute guided meditation. Then we're going to explore sexual Kundalini Yoga, and you're going to do a short exercise in breakout rooms so you can meet each other and chat and inquire. And then we'll be letting those of you who are new and think you might be interested in getting some more support from Erwan and me, how you can set up some personal one-on-one time to talk to me. We'll take some questions, some comments, some shares, and we'll wrap up by 9. And we recommend having your video on throughout the evening. We've found, since we've been on Zoom so much over the last year, that you get so much more out of the session if you're on your camera, and I think you'll find that as well. So Erwan, take it away. Let's meditate.
Let's meditate. All right. So let yourself sit in a way where you're extremely comfortable and extremely aware. Go to how comfortable can you be and how aware can you be? Now, for the awareness part, you're going to want to have your spine as vertical as possible. So get your spine as vertical as possible, your chest as lifted as possible. If you're on a couch, maybe you stuff some pillows behind your back. If you're in a chair, maybe you still stuff some pillows behind your back. You do something so that this is open, okay? Tonight is Sexual Kundalini Yoga. Your spine is a really big part of that. That's why in the illustration for tonight, we put the spine as first and foremost in the picture. It's very central to Kundalini Yoga. In fact, your spine represents the evolution of a human being from an animal to a human. Each vertebrae of the spine is a step in that evolution, and we're going to move the energy, our energy, your life energy, from more of kind of a basic, visceral, kind of animal, sort of yummy, sexual kind of energy, all the way up to spiritual energy, and then all the way back down so that you can have even better sex, right? So you get the best of both worlds. And we're going to take that very gradually. So right now we're just addressing your posture, and you want to have your spine be as upright as possible. And you want to be relaxed. So don't compromise that. Take a moment or two to sort of fiddle with your posture, get it the way you want it, get a pillow if you need that. And you might be surprised how much putting your body into it contributes to your experience, accentuates your experience, accelerates your experience. Let your whole body be in this. This is one of the things about Kundalini Yoga, about yoga in general, Kundalini Yoga, Tantra, what have you, is that the body is used. We're not escaping the body, we're using the body. You want to put your whole body into it. This is not a mental exercise. And notice for yourself what happens as you put your posture into the game. Right? You put your body in. We're going to put more than our bodies in. We're going to put our bodies in and our energy and our hearts and our souls tonight. And we're going to even put our sex in, right? We're going to put everything in. But for now, it's just the body. Let your breath reach all the way from your chest into your belly, into the lowermost part of your body, right? Your pelvis, right? Lowermost part of your torso, I should say. And what does that contribute if your breath is put into the game too, right? It's not just thoughts, not the mental part of ourselves. We spend a lot of time there. We're putting our bodies in. Now we're suggesting you put your breath into it, into your awareness. Letting your breath reach all the way down into your pelvis. This is also very important for Kundalini Yoga, especially sexual Kundalini Yoga, is your breath, your energy, your awareness reaching all the way down into your pelvis. There is no sexual Kundalini Yoga without your awareness in your sex center. Once your awareness is in your sex center with the help of your breathing and your breath, bring some concentration to that so that your awareness can really settle into the pelvic bowl. When your awareness wanders, bring it back. Awareness wandering is part of the process. Expect that. And bring your awareness back. Into the pelvic bowl. See, if we did nothing else tonight except for 2 hours practice keeping awareness in our pelvic bowl, in our sex center, being aware of that part of ourselves, you would notice a dramatic transformation in your experience. There would be an increase in vitality and sexuality and energy. We're going to do a lot more than that, but don't skip that part. We're not interested in you having a sort of mental learning or some conceptual experience of tonight. You actually want to touch tonight. You even want to let your genitals touch tonight, your life, your body, your breath. And we're starting with the very root of the spine, the pelvis, the sacrum, the base of the spine. Alertness, awareness there. What's that like? What does that feel like for you? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Is it pleasurable? Is it painful? Do you sense anything there? Does your attention bounce off of it? Does it rest there with a sense of bliss and gratitude? Just notice how that is for you. Because your body is not just physical, it's a type of transmitter of, we could say, awareness or life energy. And the sex center transmits at a particular frequency. If I were to characterize that frequency, I would say it's got a lot of charge, it's got a lot of energy, a lot of vitality. It's got a certain zing to it. It's kind of like a lightning bolt. When we're not aware of this part of ourselves, that can leave our life, it can leave our relationships. There can be a lack of energy, a sense of deficiency, a sense of fatigue, of not being turned on, and so on. So we're inviting you to hit the on switch. And even bring a little concentration, a little discipline, a little focus to what we call the vital center. To let your breath reach all the way into your sex. And once you have some sense of connection there, however that feels to you, notice the breath on the inhalation as it rises from the pelvic center up your spine, up your body, up your back, filling the pelvic bowl, then the belly, then the mid-back, then the upper back. So the breath is felt in the back of the body, from the sex center to the body center, to the back of the heart, the back of the lungs. And notice that each of these has a different frequency. Right? The sex center has a particular frequency, the hips have a particular frequency, the heart has a particular frequency. If you feel your sex center, it feels different than your heart. Now, the invitation of Kundalini Yoga is to turn all those switches on. And when we include sex in it, sexual Kundalini Yoga, to turn all those switches on, even that special switch, that sexual switch. People often wonder, wow, how do I get more turned on? I want to be more turned on. It's a big issue for people nowadays more than ever. You can't force it, but you can bring awareness to your sex center. You can be a big yes to your experience in your genitals and your pelvic bowl, regardless of what you're experiencing. Maybe it feels cold down there. Maybe it feels hot. Maybe it feels full. Maybe it feels empty. The invitation is to be a big yes. And then from there, a yes to the experience in your body. Pleasurable or painful, numb or full of sensitivity, however it is, to stay concentrated and be a big yes to your sex center, your body, your solar plexus, your heart, your neck, even your head. Life or awareness, or if we go to the Eastern traditions, prana or chi, it resonates at different frequencies. It resonates at one frequency in the sex center. It resonates another frequency in the in the belly center. Resonates at another frequency around your solar plexus, another frequency around your heart, another frequency around your neck, another frequency around your head, and another frequency above your head. Let the breath begin in the pelvic bowl, rise up the back, along the spine. Notice those different frequencies. And then let the breath during the exhalation cascade down the front of your body, your forehead, your nose, your chin, your neck, the front of your chest, your belly, all the way back to the sex center, all the way back to your pelvic bowl. So you're circulating the energy up the back, down the front. And you're noticing how those different steps feel, how those different centers feel. If we go to the Eastern traditions, we would say chakras, right? The sex chakra, the body chakra, the heart chakra, etc. But I don't want to get into fancy language. I'm more interested in your direct experience. For you to notice, what does that feel like as you circulate your awareness and your breath through your body? And to notice it feels very different in the pelvis than it feels in the belly and the heart and the head. And not only to notice that, but to stay concentrated in that. To stay focused on that, which will increase the experience. If your concentration lapses, you kind of have to start again. That's okay, that's normal. But if you can maintain your concentration, you'll notice that the experience accelerates, the experience increases. All right, now I could tell you till I'm blue in the face that it increases if you maintain your concentration, but we're more interested in you noticing that. So your intention is crucial, is essential to a practice like Kundalini Yoga. It's like doing a yoga class. If you go into that yoga class, like you're going to give your whole self to that class, and you're devoted and you're committed and you're listening to the instructor and you're doing the poses and really intently, you have a very different class. And if you go in and you're thinking about your laundry and, right? But that's true for anything, isn't it? Your sex center is a miracle, right? That energy, that vital center, it's nothing less than a miracle. Sex is how being creates more being. That spark of life, right? How we go from not existing to existing. There's not a scientist in the world who understands that in all its aspects and dimensions. It's more than pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's pulling existence out of a hat, consciousness out of a hat, pulling a human being out of nothing. Your body is a miracle. And notice if you sense your body, if you concentrate on your body, you feel your body, all that sensitivity and all these different chakras and energy centers and all this different type of experience, and you can feel and see and hear. And to say that's a miracle is to understate it, to dramatically understate it. There's not a computer or a machine or a scientist who can even begin to recreate that. And then if we go up your spine to the solar plexus, or where the solar plexus is kind of the center of the torso, if we go to the spinal part of your solar plexus, just say your mid-back, that's a center that's associated with a different type of energy. Associated with will, support, a certain type of strength and uplift. Right? If we're feeling depressed, you know how it is when you're depressed, kind of curl in on yourself and your head goes down and your shoulders kind of cave forward, that kind of thing. Solar plexus kind of curls in on itself like a seahorse. But if you're feeling it and you're aware there and you're open, there can be a dramatic sense of energy, of will, of support. A type of uplift, a type of strength. And if we continue our journey up your spine to the part of the spine related to the heart, where the nerves go from the spine out to the heart and sort of upper torso area, lungs and so on, to say that your heart is a miracle, I mean, it's a dramatic understatement. We have never found anything a millionth as sensitive as your heart. The sensitivity of your heart. I mean, it brings tears to our eyes. It's a blessing to be with you. And the invitation is to know that about yourself. Your sex is a miracle, your body, your energy center, your solar plexus, your heart is an ultra miracle. To feel the blessing of your heart. If we continue up to the neck, the chakra there is associated with communication, with expression, with meeting the world. You know, when we suggest, and it's fine if you don't have your video on, but when we suggest you have your video on, it's an expression, it's a meeting, it's a transmission, right? All these qualities are associated with the throat chakra. Expression, reception, communication. Putting that part of ourselves in the game. When Alicia and I support couples and singles in their romantic life, so much of it has to do with telling the truth and communication. not only to others, but to oneself. So let yourself really feel your energy rise up your spine. What does it feel like in your throat? And let it rise even from the throat up into the base of the skull, the back of the skull, called the occiput. On your next inhalation, feel that energy rise up, and it can really, boom, really hit that part and feel like an explosion. It's like an explosion of awareness. It can feel transcendent. That's why the music, the Indian ragas, they kind of accelerate, they sort of explode like this music is. It's an expression of that rise of energy. Your brain, your head center. Yes, it can cause us a lot of problems. We can be stuck in our head, we can be mental. But when we're not stuck in our heads, when we're just experiencing that part of ourselves, what a blessing to be able to see and think and know, to be able to understand, right? Tonight, we're half an hour into the session. You're understanding yourself at an infinitely greater depth. What a miracle. We would probably all agree that that's a miracle and you're a miracle. And what we're interested tonight is that you experience that miracle, the miracle of understanding, of knowing, the miracle of your heart and feeling, the miracle of your body and sensing, and especially the miracle of your sex. That vitality, that enjoyment. When that's cut off, it's like a part of a chain. One of the links is gone, and the whole thing collapses. And it's very common nowadays. Their relationships collapse for many people, and energy collapses, and life ends before it needs to, and there's less enjoyment and charge and enthusiasm, right? This is all related to that vital center, that sex center. So we're interested in you experiencing it, feeling it, enjoying it. It takes focus, it takes intention, it takes concentration, it takes devotion. And we'll complete our meditation in about 2 minutes, but let yourself now rise through all those centers up your spine to above your head, to the center that's associated with awareness itself. Awareness of the mind, the heart, the body, the sex, consciousness itself, life itself, awareness itself. The very essence of you. And on your next inhalation, let all of that descend like a waterfall down the front of your body. On your next exhalation, let it all descend down the front of your body, inhaling up your back, and then all of it beautifully descending on each exhalation down the front of your body. So that awareness is brought in to your life. We're going to talk for 20 minutes or so. You'll do an exercise and we'll answer some questions. That's our favorite part, to get into personal stuff. It's really fun. But let yourself feel all that awareness descend. So that it's not just on your meditation cushion or your couch or your, sort of formal meditation up the spine. Kundalini is often associated with energy rising up the spine, and sometimes people leave it there. That's really an incomplete practice. When it's done fully, it goes all the way up and it comes all the way back down into life, into your relationships and your sex life and really everything. And that part is sometimes neglected, and we're not going to leave that out tonight. So it's a pleasure to be with you. If your eyes are closed, you can slowly let your eyes open. We'll say a few words more of introduction, and then we'll go more deeply into our topic.
Oh, that was great. Really great to be with all of you. There's a bunch of you that are here. You're new. You may have never met us before, so I want to say a few words so you know who we are. So Erwan and I support both singles and couples in unleashing your relationship potential. You have a lot of potential, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, there's so much potential for growth and pleasure and connection. So that's what we love to support you in. Over the last 25 years, over 10,000 singles and couples have gone through our programs. And basically, you may be in a place of wanting to enhance the relationship you're in, or maybe there's some struggles or challenges, or maybe you're single and you want to get into a relationship. You want to find the one. You want to meet more people you're attracted to. You want to be more attractive in relationship. Maybe there's psychological challenges, sexual challenges. That is our wheelhouse. People come to us to address all of those things. We have a method that we use to address all of these goals and desires and challenges. You can see on your screen. It includes 5 parts. First part is bringing consciousness to your hidden relationship patterns that we all have as human beings playing out in relationship unbeknownst to us often. Second part of our method is making contact with your deepest self, your being, your soul, whatever you want to call that. From there, you unleash the chemistry that's possible between the masculine and the feminine. And believe me, there's a lot possible, even if you've been together for many, many years, and definitely if you're in the first stages of getting to know someone. Then we go into what I like to call choreography, which is dancing through the stages of relationship, gaining skills for the first stages of seduction and flirting, and all the way through the middle game of just getting together and committed, and then that long-term game. We like to call that the eternal date. And then finally, cultivation of your sexual potential. So that includes being able to feel pleasure throughout your body, extended orgasm. That's our signature sensual technique that we teach. So tonight we're focusing on the spiritual sexual side of things. Maybe we'll throw in a little masculine feminine dynamics. Those of you in mastery of relationship, we're in the midst of a whole series on masculine feminine dynamics. So we've become the go-to place in the Bay Area and now expanding through the country and all around the world for all things romantic and sexual. Erwan and I really like to give you the personal touch. We know that you don't need more information for your brain to chew on. We can all find that online, and that's all good stuff. We really like to handhold you through the process of creating that relationship, of taking your current relationship to the next level. It's tender, it's sensitive, it's sexy, it's exciting, and we're there with you through all of it. A little bit about our backgrounds. Why don't you start? How'd you get here?
The first 20 years or so of my life were incredibly difficult. When I write the book, you can read about that. It's a great drama. It's a real tearjerker, and that got me into first psychology, then transformational workshops, and I came out to California, took every transformational workshop I possibly could. moved into a Zen monastery, later moved into a yoga ashram, and eventually was the director of that yoga ashram. And I dove into that whole self-development thing with everything I had. I lived there. I ate self-development. I ate, breathing practices and all kinds of weird stuff like running around the room, breathing fast, waving my arms, listening to intense music, doing rebirthing, the whole 9 yards. Taught self-development courses for the world's largest self-development organization. I just went full on into that. And there was something missing for me while I was doing all of that. And I took a look at what that was, and it was that, yes, being awake was great. I had healed the problems from my childhood, but something was still missing. And what was missing was the fun, right? Like, it was kind of serious still. It was kind of like, working on oneself, right? And then I took a look at what's the most fun for me? And what's the most fun for me? I hadn't met Alicia at that point in my life, so I took out a piece of paper and I sort of wrote down what's the most fun, and it was started with a W-O-M, women, right? I was like, oh, wow, I was like, that's what I'm into. And then I had this big problem because I was director of a yoga ashram, and, you're not supposed to do that in the yoga ashram. And, I had girlfriends, and I was sneaking them in through the back door, and it was a big problem, and all the rest of that. Long story short, I came to find that there wasn't really a contradiction between the sacred, between the true, and love and sex and women and all the rest of that. As much as throughout history women have been, and sex especially has been really sort of downgraded, that it was all part of one and all beautiful, and something got complete for me, like that missing link in the chain, like the fun, right? That, woo, and now I have no doubt the most fun in my life is her.
Oh gosh. I mean, how I got into all of this was I met Erwan, basically, and I discovered extended orgasm, and the rest is history. But I'll give you a little more background, which is that I was studying to be a therapist. I was getting my master's in psychology. And kind of like what Erwan's saying, it was awesome, amazing, and kind of serious. And there was a lot to learn, and I got my master's, that's good, but I can still remember the first time I hung out with Erwan. A woman that was in my grad program was like, you should meet this guy, Erwan. You're into sexuality and psychology, right? So there I was. It was a long story how we got together, but I'll just speed through and say there we were in his living room sitting on his couch. And I wanted to cry because I could feel my heart so much being with him. And then my sex center was on fire at the same time. It was scratching all those itches that I wanted in intimacy and sex. So I grabbed him, I married him, I had his baby, we're living in the same house, we're together, and that's what's happening. So I got completely addicted to all things love, heart, sex, and orgasm. So now we're here to share it with you.
So the most important part, I love how Alicia said that, all of those itches scratched, right? And the one that the most often doesn't get scratched for people is the sexual one. It's the most taboo. People are interested, but they're afraid, especially if they're into spiritual practice or transformation or, that kind of thing. Or people are simply distracted from it. So the most important part of that, I'll tell you right at the get-go, in fact, you've already practiced it, is bringing awareness to each of those itches, each of those parts of yourself, and not to neglect your sex center. That's one of the reasons we love sexual Kundalini Yoga, is because it really touches that place, right? First, it touches it with awareness. Right? If you're single, you can touch your sex center and practice. We have a whole bunch of exercises that our single students do to really activate that sex center and really feel it. If you're in a relationship, you can do that with a partner. But you do want to touch that part, and sexual Kundalini touches that part really well because it touches it with presence, touches it with aliveness, right? Now, go back to the meditation, if you will, and recall how that felt for you, and maybe even notice if there's an echo effect from that, or if you can maintain that kind of contact with your sex center right now. Because Kundalini Yoga is a really good way to do that. So throughout tonight's session, let's not go mental. Let yourself keep practicing that. Stay in the meditation, if you will. Because Kundalini Yoga, I wrote it out here. I want to read it to you because I wrote it in a very specific way. It's a very advanced and deep practice of moving energy, which initially is sexual energy, a kind of more gross level, base, organic, visceral kind of energy, through the body and up the spine. Now, that is both a metaphor for the different parts of yourself and an actual immediate experience. And that's what you're going to get the most out of from tonight if you let yourself contact that immediate experience. Or notice, like, wow, there are some blocks. Like, I can't even feel my sex center or my heart. Like, I felt everything. But then when it came to my heart, like, there was nothing, or it was very little, or, like that. So that you have the real direct experience, real direct information, what's moving, what's flowing for you, what's not. Now, including the sex center in our experience, if we were to say that to a teenager, they would say, duh, obviously, right? Like, who wants to be without that? But as adults, we kind of start to lose that, right? And it's actually very, very important. For sex, obviously, but also for your health. Also for your vitality. And in Kundalini Yoga, as they emphasize that energy is especially important for your awakening, right? Like, you ever notice if you have a cup of coffee, you're kind of more awake. It's you just got a shot of awakeness, right? Well, I have nothing against coffee. I drink coffee, but the root of that energy, of that awakeness, is sexual energy, right? So Kundalini Yoga is all about using that energy for your awakening instead of throwing it away. And if it's sexual Kundalini Yoga, it's all about using that for your awakening and bringing it back into your life. And that's why I love it. That resolved that problem for me of spirituality and romance being in different parts of my life. It brought them together because you use that energy to awaken, and then you bring it back down the front of your body, literally all the way back to your sex center, and then you have great sex. You have more vitality. You're more, you're better at everything. You're more energized for your work projects. You're more into your friends. You just feel better. You're happier. So it brings it all the way back into life. So take a minute. Notice how that feels for you. Notice that your sex and your spirit and your body are not two, or three, I should say. They're not three. They're not separate. Just take a minute and notice that all of those parts, your body, your spirit, and your sex, are occurring in your experience, in your awareness. There's something that links them all. If we were to talk sort of spiritual jargon, we would say non-dual, right? They're in a non-dual field of experience. They're all one. Let yourself just feel that unity. The divisions, the separations, the categorizations, we all add that, right? Religions and spiritual traditions and governments and groups of all kinds really add a lot of, separations and categorizations. But in actual experience, they're not separate. In reality, they're not. And that your body is not just physical. Your body is a transmitter of different frequencies, right? The sex center has a particular frequency. The belly center has a different frequency. Right? Those are the first two chakras you can see in red on your screen. The sex center, the body center in orange, the solar plexus center in yellow, the heart in green. They have a different frequency. I love Google because we found a picture of the chakras that really included a sexy vibe. I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. That's what tonight is about, including that part. Right? It energizes the whole thing. Right? The throat center in blue has a different frequency. The head center in a lighter blue, a different shape. And then the crown of the head. Right? They all have a different frequency. And if your Kundalini Yoga is about feeling those frequencies, experiencing them, so there's not a break in your chain, right? And sexual Kundalini Yoga really emphasizes that root energy, the pump, so to speak, to really prime the pump so the whole thing really moves with a lot of vitality, right? A lot of gusto, a lot of passion, which is obviously important for romance, but is also very important for spiritual practice. And for most people, it's kind of missing in their romance, right? Especially after the honeymoon period. You know, for some people, for you, maybe the honeymoon period is 3 months, or maybe it's, you know, they say 7 months for some people, or the 7-year itch, or sometimes after people get engaged, or after they get married, or after they buy a house, or whatever, there's some kind of drop-off. Well, there doesn't need to be that drop-off. If you're in tune with all these different parts of yourself and you feed them with what? With your awareness. Your awareness is what feels your different vital centers. Right? So take a moment, feel that energy going up your spine, down your front. Notice any breaks, any places where the energy is missing. Even if it's missing or absent, don't worry about it. Just fill that absence with awareness. It's a secret technique, right? Even if your heart's a little closed or your sex center is a little closed, just fill that absence, that emptiness, with awareness, and you'll notice the energy starts flowing. That part that's closed will awaken. Takes time. But just putting energy in all your parts, even the parts that, you know, maybe you feel a little dull in the head or a little tired or heart's closed or whatever, just put energy, just put awareness there, and everything starts to move. The energy starts to circulate. Now, there's a lot of reasons that people avoid sex. So we're going to talk about that very briefly, just so we can kind of lighten that load for you a little bit.
I was working with a student of ours, one-on-one coaching, and she just had her second baby. And so she's like all about getting her sex life rolling with her husband. And she said to me, she's like, I just need to lose the 10 pounds of baby weight and then I'll have sex, right? She's avoiding sex because her body's not perfect. You know, there's another guy that I'm working with, and his partner happens to have a lot of sexual experience and he doesn't have a lot. And the other day he's like, you know, I just disappear into my clubhouse. He calls it the clubhouse. It's like his outside little in-law unit where he runs his business, and he buries himself in work. Lack of experience. He feels insecure. He disappears. Another couple that I'm working with, this is interesting. It highlights some psychological issues. His wife is like ravenous. She wants sex. She wants extended orgasm. She has been very clear about that. And in a session last week, he was like, why am I avoiding sex? He's been avoiding sex. He's like, oh my God, I'm avoiding sex because my wife wants it. And I feel dominated, you know, because my mom just was so dominant. I'm like avoiding domination and I'm avoiding sex. Yeah, we do this as human beings, psychological roots. So there's a lot of reasons we avoid sex.
And it's, you know, it's kind of funny if you think about it, because we're all so interested in it, right? but we kind of tend to avoid it. So tonight, you don't need to avoid it. And we recommend you approach it in a really classy, upright way, which is with your awareness, right? Because getting into sex or approaching sex without awareness is kind of creepy, right? So be gentle with yourself, right? Bring your presence, your awareness into your own sexual parts. Then when you bring that to somebody else and you bring that awareness and that presence, people respond really well. That's one of the things I loved about Alicia is, I've been doing this for all these years and all the rest of this kind of stuff, but then I met Alicia and she was so present and so aware in that part of herself. So when she felt turned on and sexual, she didn't go away. Now, it wasn't an accident that she was studying women and sexuality. You did your thesis on that, didn't you?
The true source of a woman's attractiveness. I wrote my master's thesis on that. I'm an expert.
So you can bring awareness to that part of yourself. It's a very gentle, gracious way to turn yourself on. Now, Kundalini Yoga, because it moves so much energy. We do a lot of work with our students, psychological issues, that kind of thing, what we call the indirect approach. It's great. We do a lot of that. It's kind of the heavy lifting of supporting people in their romantic lives. It can't be skipped. It's necessary. But the direct approach, like Kundalini, a very experiential approach, it kind of blasts through the issues. So there can be some challenges and some issues that arise with that. You can move so much energy that you move energy up and it gets stuck in your head, and then there's a kind of like, people can even get headaches, right? It's called Kundalini syndrome. Like people get headaches because the energy gets stuck in the head, and then they don't know how to relax and drop the energy down, back. And sometimes people don't know that a safe place to store that energy is in your belly, because you can activate so much energy and then, just get kind of wound up, and people have difficulty sleeping and all the rest of it. Bring the energy down the front. Now, another problem that people have with Kundalini Yoga is that, especially sexual Kundalini Yoga, is that there can be such a big blast of energy and increase in vitality that all of that energy doesn't necessarily get stuck in the head, but it gets stuck in the ego, right? So all of a sudden they've got all this extra energy, and then their ego is feeding on that energy, and they think they're somehow better than other people or more, mo better, right? Like they're just kind of, and you see that with a lot of gurus and teachers and the rest of this kind of stuff. They've had a big increase in their awareness and their energy, but they haven't worked through the issues. So that's one of the challenges with something like Kundalini Yoga, where we really just kind of blast through things and open things up. So my recommendation there is, stay humble. Keep working those psychological issues. That kind of is the heavy lifting. In fact, a very large part of the work that Alicia and I do when we support singles and couples is working through what happens when we wake up and see our mind, right? Our egos, our childhoods, the impact on us. Right? And then the last issue I'll say with Kundalini Yoga that can arise in Kundalini syndrome is that a person just gets weird. Like they just, they just get so into it, the energy and the movement, and maybe it's in their ego, maybe it's in their head, whatever, and like they just kind of lose a connection with reality, that some of the basics, and they get kind of hard to relate to, and they get a little too esoteric or something like that. So I think what I want to focus on now is how we can use this energy not only for awakening, but use it for the health of our relationships, whether we're single or in a relationship. How can we use? You're probably feeling more energy, more vital. You might even be feeling more turned on if you're letting that energy drop into your sex center. How can you use that as a single person to forward your relationship life, and how can you use it if you're in a couple already?
Well, when you're single, it helps you catch opportunities, like just really not miss those amazing opportunities to connect. Like when Erwan and I were first getting to know each other, long story short, we ended up at this workshop together, right? Like out in nature for 4 days. And I saw him on the first morning. I'm like, oh my God, that guy Erwan's here. And I was so excited, and I was finally single. Anyhow, I was really turned on, and I'd been studying some of this spiritual, sexual connection. And on one of the breaks, he and I just kind of floated towards each other. And I was so turned on, and I couldn't hold it back. And I was feeling my heart, and I was feeling my sex. And Erwan goes, that feels good. Like, that feels good. He felt me. And I was like, oh, this guy's dialed in. He's present. He's not shying away from my sex. He didn't miss that opportunity. I was hooked. Now, when you're in a relationship, exploring this energy, this sexual energy, and letting it ride and let it release, it opens the heart like nothing else. I mean, just this morning, Erwan and I have a daily sensual practice. Those of you in Mastery, and you're always hearing about this, a daily sensual practice. We were practicing extended orgasm, clitoral stroking practice, plus, the plus means we were also doing some oral sex and having some fun. Afterwards, I collapsed onto Erwan, and my heart was so open, affinity was through the roof. And when you just love someone so much, you have to just inhale them. And I was burrowing my face in his neck and smelling him, and I couldn't get enough. There was heart there, as well as that sexual opening. And that's one of the ways that exploring this sexual energy can impact your relationship life. And we've been together, you guys, for 20 years, right? And that's available to all of you, that turn on, that affinity, that connection.
So it helps your spiritual practice. If you're single, it helps you get in a relationship. If you're in a relationship, it really helps you bond. And it's fun, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to say briefly before we have you enter an exercise, or let's see how we're going to do this. I think we'll do an exercise with everybody. Yeah. All right. So I want to say briefly that if you study the various traditions, there's a lot in common. Many different traditions, especially the traditions that are not sort of disembodied, right? Like Kundalini Yoga is a very embodied tradition. Yoga is a very embodied tradition. Taoism, if you're familiar with that, is a very embodied tradition, right? So what these traditions have in common is they focus on a column of space, sort of a vertical column. Let's put this picture up for folks. They focus on a column of space in the human body that's a transmitter for all of these different frequencies. And another thing that they have in common is that they limit ejaculation for males. Okay, we could do a whole topic on that in Mastery of Relationship. Every once in a while we bring this up. We're not morally against ejaculation. We're huge fans of orgasm. In fact, we're maybe the world's biggest fans of orgasm because we're into extended orgasm, all the signs of orgasm, the involuntary contractions and the release and the whole bit. But there's a page in the book of these traditions that's incredibly wise, which is when there's a lot of male ejaculation, it tends to devitalize the male. And that is a problem nowadays like it has never been before, because there's a lot of pornography out there, basically. We're not morally against pornography. We're just saying that that causes a devitalization. And instead, what these traditions recommend doing is channeling that energy up, in the case of Kundalini Yoga, up the spine and then down the front, so that it's enlivening you instead of reducing your energy. Now, you do want to do that in a way where you're having orgasm and having release. Otherwise, that sucks, right? Like not ejaculating, God, that sucks. But if you're having extended orgasm and you're having all the signs of Masters and Johnsons, for those of you who know who they are, sex researchers from last century, from the like 1940s or something. They had a great definition of orgasm, which is involuntary contractions in the genitals. If you're experiencing the release, any involuntary contractions, and you're not getting devitalized, that is awesome. And some spiritual traditions approach that, like sexual Kundalini Yoga, the Taoist tradition does. Our unique contribution to that is, let's put this picture up. Mm-hmm. So, those traditions recommend blocking off the pelvic floor, right? See those arrows pulling up? They recommend doing what's called the Mula Bandha. It's like a Kegel, for those of you who know what it is. A Kegel is kind of pulling your genitals up and in, sealing the pelvic floor, not leaking the energy out. It's good not to leak the energy out. Here's a male, here's a picture of a female. It's a little more from the front to pull in and up for the female. It's a little more from below for the male, right? Here's the pelvic floor, right? So that's really good not to leak that energy. But you do, to have release, those muscles in the pelvic floor do need to involuntarily contract. Right, so one of our contributions is not just bringing it all the way to extended orgasm, but it's like, how do you do that? Well, you don't just lock up the pelvic floor. You actually have to also know how to push out, which is release those muscles. There's a whole bunch of fancy names for those muscles. I'll skip that. You don't need to know that. But instead of just pulling up and holding it locked, which people kind of already do, because people are kind of tight asses around sex, if you'll excuse me for saying so. You have to know how to push out so when you have orgasm, you can have those involuntary contractions. I don't want to go too much more into that, but what I'm trying to say is that a lot of these traditions have a lot in common, which is don't leak the energy, bring the energy and the awareness up through all your parts, then bring it down into your life, even into your sex life. Use your body as a transmitter for that. And then our unique contribution is, if you learn how to do extended orgasm, the technique, the clitoral stroking technique, the pushing out I was just talking about, all of that, you can actually sustain that orgasm without devitalizing yourself. Okay? And then limiting ejaculation is not a cause for suffering. It's actually like, I was coming for 20 minutes while we were making out this morning, and I didn't ejaculate, and I felt more energized afterwards than I did before we started, right? And that's possible for all of us. All right. So I think that's enough about that. Oh, we'll show you a brief. This is a non-oral sex picture. This is a picture of the stroking practice, just so you can see it since we've been talking about it. Alicia's laying down. I'm sitting up. I'm stroking on her clitoris. We recommend a lot of attention to the clitoris. That's a whole other topic. We're not going to get into that tonight, but I just want to show you a picture of that. So before we put you into breakout rooms to discuss, what are you going to take from tonight? What's been the most valuable for you that you can use, that you can implement? We're going to go through it again a little bit more intensely and more quickly than we did earlier. We spent half an hour meditating in the beginning. In about 5 minutes, we're going to go through all of that and more. So get back in your upright posture. If you want to get the transmission extra intense, turn your videos on. It's fine if you don't. I'm just saying, right? It's for you. It's not for us. We're looking at mostly the first screen. Everybody's video is on there. It's really for you. And let your breathing be a little bit faster. Let your breathing be a little bit faster than it was before. Just a little bit quicker, not a lot quicker, just a little bit quicker. And let your breath reach all the way into your sex center. Use your intention, right? Intention is key. Use your intention, visualize it. Don't worry about, am I imagining it? Don't worry about that. Visualize it, feel your sex center, breathe into there. Let the breathing be a little bit more rapid. Now, while you're feeling your sex center, bring something to mind that kind of turns you on. A sexual position, a person, whatever it happens to be. Just for a moment, we'll put that picture on of the extended orgasm. That's from us doing a demonstration. We'll put that on. You can use that as your visualization. You can keep your eyes closed and imagine something. Here's another sort of spiritual, beautiful picture, that energy moving between a spiritual couple. And just use that to kind of turn that switch on even a little bit more. And then while you're breathing just a little more rapidly, with a little more intention than earlier, we're only going to go about 3 more minutes. Let your hands come up and kind of face your heart, right, the way Alicia and I are doing. And just visualize the energy from your hands entering your heart. So you're using your hands as a kind of accelerator to increase that intensity of awareness. Now let your hands kind of point at your solar plexus. Now let your hands actually point downwards towards your sex center, exactly like we're doing, and push that energy. Push it right into your sex center. And as you push it into your sex center, push your genitals out. Push them out like you're bearing down, like you're going to the bathroom. Then pull them in like a Kegel, like a contraction, like you're trying not to pee. Then push them out. Push out, push out, push out really intensely. Then pull them up. You're doing voluntary contractions. Pull up, push out. Pull up, push out. Notice how that feels. Continue doing that in a little bit more of a relaxed way and feel that energy rising up your spine. On the inhalation, dropping down the front of your body. On the exhalation, we only have about another minute to go. We're doing it short to not push the boundaries too much here, right? Many of you are new. And just pushing out and pulling in with your genitals, being a big yes to whatever you're experiencing, breathing that up your spine, down your front. Using a little visualization, a little imagination. And then let your sex center release, and notice if there's any echo effect, if the genitals kind of involuntarily vibrate or even involuntarily contract after what you just did. And now what I'd like you to do is visualize doing this with a partner. Visualize yourself in an embrace with a partner, fully heart connected, fully body connected, fully connected with a partner, and even connected in your sex center, even genitally connected, but not at the cost of your presence or your heart or your love. So you're connected in all parts, and just let yourself visualize that energy moving not only through your body, but also through a partner's body. We have that up on the screen if you want to look at that for a moment. Just let yourself feel that. Human beings have a longing for that. It's a sacred longing. Not only to be awake, but to be awake in relationship and awake in romantic relationship. That's what we're doing tonight. That's what sexual Kundalini is about. That's Alicia and I's MO, right? So let yourself really feel that, see that, visualize that. Notice how that feels in all your parts. And let yourself be very relaxed. Notice the impact of that 5-minute exercise on your mind, your heart, your body, your sex. Just let it sort of wash over you. Let your breathing be relaxed and soft.